Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. WeatherBrains episode 567, November 28th. What a busy evening here. Wow. Yeah, we're looking at wildfires and severe weather and rain. Now, what we're talking about here, the Weather Service in Morristown, Tennessee, has issued an EVI message. I have never seen one of these in all my years. This is an evacuation immediate message. The city of Gatlinburg and nearby communities are being evacuated due to wildfire in the city at this time. If you are in Gatlinburg and are able to evacuate immediately. And some of the images that I'm seeing, horrifying video from hotels that are on fire, cabins that are on fire. I mean, this is a fairly significant tourist destination, and this is just horrifying. So, but anyway, so I will be a little out of the show tonight. We have severe storms and a lot of things going on here. So, Bill and the rest of the cast will I'll be the button presser here. But it has been, we've not really had action here in this market in a long time, and people are panicking because it's raining. Hadn't rained here for some places since September. And we have fires all over my state. It's been windy. The pressure gradient winds have been just brutal today. And I've got so many wildfires. The good thing is that this rain is going to help knock some of this stuff down. Wow. This Gatlinburg thing is just horrifying. All right, so I'm going to let you guys have it for a second here while I post this. Somebody say something. We have all kind of intelligent people on here. Somebody say something funny.
Hey, this is Nick Walker.
Nick, take it, man. Take the show. You're good.
Now that's funny.
Are you working in the morning, Nick?
It's a song.
I got to get up at 5 my time, which is not as bad as a lot of folks, but I worked a short turnaround Sunday night into this morning, so I'm still a little reeling from that. But I can hang with you till 11.
Looks like you're going to have a
my time.
Bunch of bad news to talk about from Gatlinburg.
You know, I haven't. Tell me what's been happening. I've been decorating the Christmas tree here the last couple of hours.
Well, James was telling us, because I didn't know, a forest fire has been blown into the city. And
oh gosh,
Hilton's on fire.
We've got a mandatory evacuation for Gatlinburg.
Oh my gosh,
this is horrifying. Some of the video we're seeing is just horrifying. For those that are watching, this is the pre-show, and typically we would be sharing boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and saying outrageous things, but my cup is full here. We're going to start the show in a matter of mementos. Brian, did you figure out the E-Warn situation?
Yeah, some sort of daggum Windows update. It's running,
brother.
It's running now. Sorry about that. I can't say anymore.
Yeah,
checked it earlier.
I've got it feeding the Slack channel, and I noticed it wasn't on there. And it feeds my Facebook page, and it wasn't on there. So I just figured.
I checked it earlier today, and everything seemed to be fine because I thought we'd need it tonight. And then I thought, well, not getting any warnings, but I wasn't seeing anything on the radar scope, so I just assumed everything was fine. But it's working now, so.
All right. Is everybody here? Oh, Bill left. So I've been so busy today. I didn't even shave. I look like a bum. So I got this thing on my ear I had one of these skin cancer things. And, guys my age typically get a bunch of these. And this is the first one I've ever had. And of all places, it was in my ear, one of these little basal cell things. So they had to go in there and scrape it out and dig it out. So you got to, treat it like every day for a week. And it's disrupted my morning schedule. And I had an out-of-town talk today, and I totally forgot to shave. So I'm looking like I look like I'm on the seventh day of a 6-day drunk. And speaking of drunks, boy, do I have a story at the Alabama-Auburn football game, but I probably better not share it because I'll get in big trouble.
Oh, it's going to be hard to pick a show just like this episode.
What did it have to do with you and Vern?
No, it was somebody else. Everybody on this show would know, but I better not because I'm in too much trouble as it is. All right, let's see. Bill. Yeah. Looks like Bill has left the room. Here he comes. Let me get the recorders going here. I'm going to get this thing started. Thanks to all you guys for being on with us. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 567. This is the podcast all about weather. This is for the 28th of November, 2016. Man, I got a bone to pick with our producer. Last week, I had to do a restart. And I said, no, edit that out. So what does he do? He puts it in there. I mean, he put the goofy thing in there just to poke a stick at the bear. But that's okay. We just, we wear our heart on our sleeve here. We are who we are. But thanks a lot for joining us. And due to a lot of things that are happening at this moment on the 28th of November, I'm going to have to step aside and let Mr. Murray kind of run the show tonight. But I will step back in here because I have a lot of questions for our guests. And this is going to be a good show. But Bill Murray, the floor belongs to you, sir.
Well, James, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm heartbroken at what's going on in Gatlinburg. That's just awful. We were so busy focusing on the weather.
Except for those people that are listening, since we only talked about that in the pre.
Yeah, apparently a wildfire. Of course, winds over eastern Tennessee extremely strong today and tonight, and a wildfire is threatening to burn into the city of Gatlinburg. And the National Weather Service in Morristown had issued an EVI product, a product I'd never seen, an evacuation immediate product. So the video from there is very frightening, and hopefully something will turn or they can control this, but it looks pretty ugly from what we just saw on the television. So, but it is Monday evening, the 28th of November, and we're here, and we're glad you're here with us tonight. We've got a great pair of guests with us, and we're going to, one of them's a cult hero, and one of them needs no introduction. I'll start with the one that needs no introduction. Nick Walker from the Weather Channel. Good to have you back on the show.
Thanks. It's always good to be a part of this. I appreciate the opportunity to sit in with you tonight. There's a lot happening. There's a lot going on. All of a sudden, we got the fires. We've got the rain and the thunderstorms. We've got wintry weather around parts of the country. So busy times.
Yeah, I bought a rain gauge on July the 8th. And since then, we've only gotten 4.19 inches of rain at my house. And so I think I'm going to send it back to NetAtmo and tell them it's defective. What do you think, Brian? Do you think that'll work?
You could try. I don't know if they'll buy that story or not there, Bill.
Well, maybe if you don't tell them. So this rain gauge just doesn't work. So.
It's never been used. It's like new.
Yeah. Other than a couple of slugs that have taken up habitat inside it, it's just good as new. So, but it's good to have you here tonight, Nick. And now you shared something over the holiday weekend that we want to talk about tonight because you want to use that as your pick a little bit later. So why don't you bring us up to date on that?
Yeah, it's actually a fundraiser that I've started working on for a former colleague of mine at the Weather Channel. Back in 2014, Guy Walton was one of our forecasters, and he had been one of the forecasters at the Weather Channel for 31 years. And in 2014, in the fall of 2014, there was a massive layoff of a lot of different departments at the Weather Channel, and he was among those who were laid off. And we were so sorry to see him go because he had been with us so very long. He had gone back to he had forecast Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Hugo. He was very active when Katrina made landfall. the busy 2005 hurricane season, Superstorm Sandy. I mean, you name it. He pretty much was involved with forecasting all of the major storms over the past 30 years or so. And I kind of lost touch with him for about a year. And all of a sudden, my wife came home from work one day. She's a physical therapist. And she said, "Do you know a guy named Guy Walton that you used to work with?" And I said, yeah, I haven't seen him in a while. And she says, "Well, he is in the hospital. He tried to commit suicide, and he's laid up. His legs are not working, and she had a friend who was his physical therapist. And so I went to see Guy and found out the whole story. And what I didn't know for the many years that I worked with Guy is that he suffered from chronic depression. And I've begun to realize just how prevalent that is. So many people suffer from chronic depression, and he was one of these guys. And after his layoff, he could not find another job as a weather forecaster. Shortly after that, his mother died. And
no.
So it's just one thing after another. And the depression just really, became exacerbated with all of these events in his life. And he decided he was just going to end it all. And one day he decided he was going to jump off of a bridge. It's a bridge that it's about 40 foot high down onto a railroad bed. And he survived. But boy, his body was in bad shape. He lost the use of both legs, internal injuries, other fractures involved. And by the time I saw him, he was already actually recovered from many of those internal injuries, but still doesn't have the use of his legs. Well, we got to talking because he was saying, "I am just I'm bleeding money." With all of these expenses that are not covered by insurance. We're talking about ongoing ambulance transportation, all the hospital bills that weren't covered by insurance, assisted living, physical therapy. And so I said, well, maybe we can, there's a lot of people who care about you, Guy, and maybe we can help out. So a couple of weeks ago, I started this fundraiser on the youcaring.com website, and it's specifically designed for people who have needs like this. And I just trying to get the word out. I got the word out to my colleagues at the Weather Channel. We've gotten the word out on Twitter and on Facebook, and slowly some donations are beginning to come in, and it's encouraging to me to see folks who don't even know Guy, but yet are touched by his story, possibly because they know people who suffer from chronic depression. One person told me in a note that they have family members who committed suicide because of their depression. And so it hits home with a lot of people. And there's so many weather aficionados and weather geeks who have benefited from Guy's forecasts over the years that they're beginning to respond as well. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come on WeatherBrains and just talk about Guy's story, talk about his need, and the thing is, Guy has such a positive attitude now. He is glad that his attempt was not successful. He feels like he has a lot to give back. He's experienced a lot of giving back already with the healthcare workers, with friends coming to his aid. And he's realizing, everybody's got something to give. And he's realizing I've got something to give as well. For the past couple of years, he's actually been working on a young people's book about climate and weather. And he now has renewed interest and renewed energy in working on that book. He hopes to be able to tell his story to for some time to come and be sort of a survivor's advocate for people who suffer from chronic depression, the number one cause of suicide in this country. And so he has the attitude now that he wants to use this as a jumping off place to help others who may have experienced what he's experienced. And it's so great to see this renewed energy in his life. And we want to kind of help keep that going by supporting him in a tangible way, and that is to help him out with his overwhelming hospital bills and need for ongoing health care. And we're gonna hope and pray that one day he is back on his feet again, because gradually he's beginning to get the feeling and use of his legs back. He's got a long way to go, but we're hoping we're going to see that one day.
Well, this is an amazing story. So tell us, Nick, I know you're going to use it as your pick a little bit later, but how?
No. He can't do that because it's already in the show notes.
Oh, okay. So you've been,
sorry, Nick, not going to let you out that easy on your pick. It's already in the show notes. So
these weather producers, what are you gonna do with the show producers?
Brian's the best in the business.
Yeah, get out of here.
Crack webmaster there.
But yeah, so he does crack the whip, doesn't he?
How can our listeners go and help if they are so inclined to do?
Well, the website is called youcaring.com/helpguy. That's youcaring.com/helpguy. And you can go there and you can see a video that tells his story. You can hear him tell his story. And it's pretty heartwarming to hear him speak about his experience. And it describes the need. It talks about specifics of money that is needed. You know, he's already about $60,000 in the hole. He's going to have more expenses to come with his rehabilitation. So we're trying to get a good start on helping him financially. And even if you're not able to give, I hope that you'll have a word of encouragement for Guy. His Twitter handle is ClimateGuyW. Climate Guy, GUIW. And just go and tweet him a word of encouragement. There's also a way that you can write a word of encouragement there if you donate using the website. And I tell you what, no gift is too small.
Exactly.
There really is no gift that's too small. I know folks who say they would love to give more, but they've only been able to give small amounts. But I tell you what, it is so appreciated. And Guy is so encouraged, not only by their gifts, but by the encouraging messages that they leave on that website.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Nick. And I know that just everything adds up, even the smallest gifts add up. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. We're glad you're with us tonight. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and Rick Smith, you're up there in Oklahoma. What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, it's fall. We got here locally, we got a tiny amount of rain yesterday, but got more off to the southeast. And just sitting here watching the Twitter, the stuff in Gatlinburg is just horrible. My wife and I spent our honeymoon there years ago, and that's such a beautiful area, and I hate to see that happening anywhere. But gosh, some of the pictures and video coming in tonight are really, really scary over there.
Yeah, and you just really don't think about that. This has been such a serious situation in the southeast, and these winds today, 30 to 40 miles an hour, just, we kind of, feel what you guys have been through there in Oklahoma many, many times, right?
And Bill, you mentioned that EVI message, that evacuation immediate. That's part of a suite of non-weather emergency products the Weather Service can issue, and we do those here. But typically, we do it under a different header. It's a fire warning. When we do it here, it's essentially it's like a tornado warning for fire. But that's a message that the Weather Service issues at the request of a local city or county government official, emergency management. So that's what's going on over there this evening.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Rick. That's very helpful. So, Nate Johnson, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. And sort of along the Gatlinburg conversation, my wife and I drove to Huntsville for Thanksgiving, and driving on I-40 through Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, lots of signs for Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. And the image I remember, the smoke was terrible on the way out there. It was a little bit better last night coming back. But the image I will not forget is crossing the French Broad River in Asheville. And it is so far down. On the side of the bank, there was a dock that had been in the water at one point that people used to, park their boat at. And it was basically hanging limp on the side of the bank with about another 20 feet below it before you actually got to water. That's how dry it is out there. And, wildfires, it's a natural consequence of that when you start talking about, mountains and forest living, and then you add in drought. There's a lot of fuel, and eventually these sorts of things happen. So certainly we hope the rain that you guys are getting in Alabama and Tennessee right now makes it into the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee quickly and heavily.
Yeah, we're the official forecast for us over the next 5 days is to get 4 inches, and I think that goes up into the same area. So
yeah,
boy, it can't get there quick enough.
No, it cannot.
I don't know what we've picked up here tonight, but it's probably about 3/4 of an inch. How about you, Brian? How much have you gotten?
37 hundredths. So
okay,
that was with the main line, but there's still more coming back, coming behind the main line. So that's okay with me. It can rain all night if it wants to.
Kevin Selly, you're in Wichita Falls. What's going on in your neighborhood?
Well, gosh, thankfully, we're blessed to be fairly quiet here. We're no drought and no fires, thankfully. Just a windy day here. Watching, like the rest of you, stuff go by on Twitter for these Gatlinburg fires. Seeing several people tweet out loops from our guest's product, Mike's product, of the smoke plume that's showing up on radar going away from Gatlinburg. It's just amazing stuff, and I fear the pictures that we will see on the news tomorrow.
I do too. It's just heartbreaking. So it's nice to have you here tonight, Kevin.
Thanks.
And Brian Peters, I guess you had a big family reunion Thanksgiving.
I sure did. Plus, my team won, so that's always good.
and look good doing it. So yeah, we've all Alabama, my team, won well too, and did well in the Iron Bowl. So hopefully we can continue our winning ways. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. By the way, my team's Florida State Seminoles. So
I thought everybody knew that.
Just in case they didn't.
And
I have an interesting statistic that's meaningless, but the Florida State Seminoles, the seniors who graduated, and this was their last home game. I mean, they'll go to a bowl eventually, but this was their last home game, and they also hold the distinction of never having lost as team members at Florida State to Miami or Florida. So for the last 4 years
of Florida, huh?
Yep, unofficial champion of the sort of the three big teams. I'm sure that there's a lot of other teams that would challenge that, but that's all right.
Yeah, well, that's all right. They can just do that. But it's nice to have you here tonight, Brian. Thank you.
Nice to be back.
Aubrey, you're muted.
Yes.
How are you, Aubrey?
Well, I'm having problems with my mic. I had to switch over to the iPad. So
oh well.
I restarted the computer and everything, but I'm here.
That's good. Well, it's working. I guess you spent some time in Gatlinburg, probably.
Yeah, very close to where I used to live, and that area is very, very busy this time of the year. Holidays are huge out there. They have all the holiday shows in Pigeon Forge and Sevierville and those areas. So this is a big that's just heightens that risk because there are a lot of people out in that area. So very scary situation. But boy, that rain, we could use it and more. Yeah,
bring it on. We'll take it. I know we're hoping for a good 6-7 inches over the next 45 days here. That would just be just what the doctor ordered. But it's nice to have you on the show tonight.
Well, nice to be here.
And our guest WeatherBrain tonight is a coal hero in these parts. He's the founder of RadarScope, the wildly popular radar app for the Mac OS and Apple iOS. He works for WDT in Norman. Mike Wolfenbarger, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. It's nice to be back.
It's been a long time, sir. 5.5 years almost, to be exact. So
yeah.
nice to have you back.
2011, right before we launched the Mac app, actually.
I was going to say, I think that was one of the questions that we asked you back then. How long is it going to be before you had one? And I hope you gave us a stay tuned message back then.
We did. We were still, back then, we were still 6 months away from launching an Android app too, which we have now.
So talk about your background, Mike. Remind us how you got into weather, and then let's talk about some of the cool things you did that led up to RadarScope.
Sure. Well, I kind of got into weather through the back door. I was a electrical and computer engineering major here at the University of Oklahoma. Got a job with the Oklahoma Mesonet in 1992, first as a student and then full time. I spent 19 years there, forming in the software development group for the Mesonet, building the software that did and processed their data and produced their products and displayed their data. So spent quite a bit of time doing that. RadarScope was a spin-off effort of that. It started as a kind of a nights and weekends project with me and a couple of the other guys there. Grew into something that was a little bigger than nights and weekends, but not quite big enough to be full time. So we joined forces with another company to spin out of OU, which was Weather Decision Technologies. They were an OU startup company, one of the first OU startup companies back in 2000. And we joined them in 2012, came on board here full time, brought RadarScope in to make it a WDT product and put WDT's resources behind it. And that's helped us make it a lot better over time.
So Mike, talk about OK First and the role that played in that process, making that happen.
Sure. That's one of the things we're very proud of here in Oklahoma. Our OK First project launched in the mid 90s. I think we launched in 1996. This was back in the days when NexRad level 3 data wasn't free. It was something you had to pay for. We had emergency managers across the state that we felt like could benefit from being able to look at the same data, the same radar data that the forecasters and meteorologists were looking at when they issued warnings. So OK First started as a grant to fund software development and curriculum development and training programs for Oklahoma emergency managers to teach them how to interpret radar data and other weather data, and to help them go through the decision-making process and help them know when they needed to alert their communities and what kinds of weather events were coming down the pike that they needed to know about to help protect property and lives. So we rolled that program out in 1996. I believe I saw on their Facebook page, program manager James Hawker over there mentioned that they've trained about 400 people this year, so they're still going strong. So 20 years later, we've still got a great program there that we're proud of. RadarScope is, at least in part, based on software that we developed back in the 90s to display that data on PCs and Macintosh computers. When the iPhone came along, we knew we had a software base that was somewhat compatible with it, so it was a obvious next step for us to put it in a device that you could put in your pocket. So that's kind of how we got from there to here.
So you guys concepted this out and then took it to the university. What was their response to you when you did that?
Well, there's a process you do go through at the universities to take something into the private sector if you want to commercialize a technology that's been developed at the university with university money. The initial thinking I had when we started it was let's use this as a fundraising opportunity for our department, an opportunity to provide this software not just to emergency managers in Oklahoma, but to emergency managers in other states that weren't that we couldn't directly serve with the funding we got from the state of Oklahoma. Those conversations with the technology development office at OU evolved with some back and forth with them, and the gist of it was that they didn't want the university to be in the business of selling software and supporting it. So if we wanted to do it, we needed to either license it out to someone or start our own business. We chose to start our own business and sell it as a side project. The guy in charge of licensing at OU asked me at the time, he says, well, how many of these are you going to sell? And I said, I don't know. I might sell 1,000 copies of it. we sold 1,000 copies in the first 3 days, and we're still here 8 years later. So, and nobody could be more surprised by that than me.
So the original company that you formed was called Base Velocity, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yeah, we had to come up with a name, and that was one we settled on. And it was after we settled on the name for the company that we decided version 1.0 of the product needed to support base velocity as a radar product, because originally it was just reflectivity. So we settled on the name and then had to go back and change the software to make sure we didn't leave that feature out. So, and that was, like I say, a nights and weekends gig. It was an OU startup company, so you had some equity in the company. OU also had some equity in WDT. So when the opportunity arose to bring base velocity into WDT, that was a pretty obvious fit.
Now, it's always been one of the most tremendous, values in weather, obviously, Mike, and for a long time it was a one-time purchase price, but that's not an easy business model to support. How have you changed that over time?
Well, you're right. It's not an easy business model to support. It started out easily enough because we were able to get in early with the iPhone and the App Store. We were the 16th, I believe, paid weather app on the App Store in August of 2008. So started out great, and we even had a few years there of increasing sales where we're funding new users, or we're funding the old users, the existing users, from new sales. But obviously, you can't do that forever. You get to a point where a lot of people that want an iPhone in the U.S. already have one, or an Android phone, or whatever. So in 2014, summer of 2014, we launched a subscription option. It's an optional add-on package that provides lightning data, longer loops of our super res radar data, and that's a $10 a year option. And now so that the advantage of that is it gives us some recurring revenue. It gives the people that want to have extra features in the software and that want to help us support ongoing development. It gives them an opportunity to send us money every year to support the product. So instead of $7 once after Apple takes their cut, we get $7 a year to put toward making the product better and adding improvements. And so we're happy to be able to do that. As of this year, subscription sales are now about 60% of our revenue. So
what percentage does that uptake equate to for you?
Well, we're about, let's see, I want to say about 1 out of 8 people are subscribers now, something like that. So it's been pretty good. If you look at what they call conversion rates for a lot of products, either a free product that you have add-on purchases for, or a paid product that you can spend more money on. A lot of times people say you do well to have a 2 or 3% conversion rate, and our conversion rate's well into the double digits. So we're really thrilled about that, and we're thankful that we've got a customer base that wants to keep supporting the product.
Now, one of your biggest fans pushed all the buttons to start the show tonight, and it was obviously a big adopter early and loved the product so much, and pushed you to move into a professional version of it. Talk about the challenges of meeting and balancing those needs of a professional and a casual user.
Absolutely. James was one of our early supporters, and it came to my attention, some of the things you mentioned about how people can use it in a professional setting, how people can use it in a broadcast and a media environment. I've got family in Alabama, and to have family in Alabama call me and say, hey, I just saw James Spann using your product on the air. Isn't that one yours? I'm like, oh, really? So that kind of makes me famous to the family in Alabama, because they thought it was pretty neat when James was using it on the air. We are also able to, see how professionals use the app, how people that need to communicate weather safety information, whether it's on TV or otherwise, to people use it, watching how you tweet screenshots, annotate screenshots, post things to social media, how you use the app on the air. All of those things are things that we try to pay attention to and figure out how we can make it easier to do.
And it's a great product. Absolutely great.
Thanks, Brian. We appreciate that.
Yeah, man, I tell you, when I'm at an outdoor event providing weather support and we have echoes on the screen, I've got people over my shoulder that are making these decisions watching your product too. So I love using it, and it is, I think, easy to use, and easy to show people about what we think is going to happen. So it's wonderful.
So Brian, if you could improve the product in any way, how would you do?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. Every time I think that there's not much they can do, they always surprise me and come up with something that they can do that makes it even better. But it's so fully functioned now. It's hard to imagine that they can make it better. But I have confidence that they will.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some changes in the offing. What's coming our way in the new Mac version?
Well, we do have version 3 for the Mac that's coming out pretty soon. We started beta testing last week. Several of you guys have been helping us with that.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian. I've got a few bug reports back from folks, and we're working on fixing the bugs. When we got the bugs fixed, we'll be rolling out a release. So I hope that'll be for the next couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure it'll be before Christmas, but there's always some uncertainty there, so we've just got to see how the bugs fall out. The main goal with the Mac release was to get it up to feature parity with what we've done on iOS and Android. There were some features that were missing, and we've been able to get all of those in. We've got video and GIF exports, which have never been in the Mac version. Those are coming to the Mac version now.
Fabulous.
So we're able to do that, including posting directly to social media from those.
Are you going to be able to in the new one? Are you going to be able to set the amount of time for the animation, or is that still just you pick? I can't remember, 10, 20 frames.
Yeah, we're still doing pick the number of frames you want. So
Okay.
we're still doing that right now. With the different radar DCPs and scanning strategies, it might make sense to do a time-based thing at some point, but for now we're just doing number of frames. Especially if you're in a mobile environment, I think number of frames is probably the best way to think about, well, how much data am I going to download and how long will it take to get it? So,
Right.
So we've stuck with that at least for now.
Yeah.
We're also adding multi-pane support on the Mac version. So we've had the dual pane display as one of the pro subscription options for iOS and Android for a while now. And we're real happy to be bringing that to the Mac finally in version 3. And we're going to take it a step farther. We do 2 panes of display on iOS and Android devices. We're going to have a 2-pane and a 4-pane option on the Mac. So we're excited about that.
All right.
Now, Mike, I noticed when I tried to apply my subscription to the sandbox version, I guess, of the beta, that it wouldn't do that. Is that just going to be the case, or did I didn't have much time to play with it? Is there still a way to make that happen?
We probably need to find a way for you to activate that so you can test it. It's the way Apple does in-app purchases and subscriptions, and how you test those is really kind of a pain. So we never know exactly how it's going to work with a what they call a sandbox build. The idea is you can test it. You should be able to test it and make a purchase without actually spending money, because it's not an App Store build, and so it should let you walk through the motions as if you're making a purchase for a subscription, but not actually bill you. I've seen some cases where that works and some cases where it doesn't. It's one of the frustrating things about testing apps that will eventually be in the App Store. So, but once it's all live and official through Apple, all of that should just work, and your subscriptions will carry over. One of the changes we did make for iOS last summer, I think it was back in July, was to change the subscription for Radarscope Pro from what they call a non-renewable subscription into an auto-renewing subscription. And we're doing that with the Mac subscription as well with this release. Now the main thing that you see different from the user's point of view is that instead of having to manually purchase it again each year when it expires, it will auto-renew unless you cancel. And we've gotten some people like that because it saves you having to remember to do it. Some don't like it because they feel like they might get billed when they didn't mean to. The good news is if you do purchase a subscription, you can immediately go in and cancel it, and it'll keep your subscription for a year, and it won't auto-renew the next time it comes due. But the other good things for us, we found it's much easier to manage these. Apple actually keeps track of a lot more things for you with auto-renewables, so we don't have to have a syncing service to get it from your iPhone to your iPad when you buy it. It just syncs across automatically. And that reduces the tech support. It reduces a lot of frustration. The other good news is once you've been an auto-renewing subscriber for a year, Apple, instead of taking 30% cut every time you buy something, they'll take a 15% cut. So that gives us more money that we can put toward improving the product. We get $8.50 out of the 10 instead of 7. So we're happy to have that bring us a little more money to put toward making the product better instead of just helping out pay their credit card charges.
I know we see James in the window down there, and James, I know you got a lot of questions to ask Mike tonight. So if this is an opportunity that you want to take, why don't you do that?
Yeah, so I've got a beta version of the radar scope for Mac. What was it? 3, Mike? Is that the new version number?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, the greatest thing, I see a lot of cool things added, including animated GIFs or GIFs, whatever you call them.
GIF.
But that's yeah. Nate's big on Nate. What is it?
GIF.
GIF.
Hard
GIF.
Gifts.
GIF. Okay.
I mean, come on.
GIF.
Do you build weather graphics for your newscast? No, you build
GIF.
graphics. RG. So it's GIF. I don't care what the
Apparently,
inventor
poke the bear. I don't know what I did here. Wow.
It's grumpy.
GIF.
So it
GIF
seems
is
very
painful.
stable. So, and you guys probably, but when is it going to be released to the public, Mike?
We'll get it out. I was saying a minute ago, I'm almost certain we'll get it out before Christmas, but we do have a few bugs that have come in over the long weekend, so we're going to look at those and figure out how to get those fixed. We've probably got at least one more round of beta testing, maybe 2.
And if you would explain to the world, writing code is not easy. This is something you just don't go in and fix in 15 minutes. I don't think people understand how challenging this is. It's fascinating, but it's very hard.
Well, there's something like 200,000 lines of code, I think, something like that in RadarScope now across the various platforms. And so a lot of times finding a bug and fixing it if something's wrong is a needle in a haystack effort. Sometimes those things are easy to fix once somebody points out to you that they're there, but sometimes they can be a challenge. We've got one bug report that came in today from Steve Miller, our head of marketing here at WDT. When he exports an image, the graphics are all screwed up, and it happens on his MacBook Pro if he's running macOS 10.12, but it doesn't happen on any of our devices, so we'd never seen it before. So some of it is just a matter of different device, slightly different software version. Some of it's just, complex timing of things that don't happen in the same order they happen when we test them. So yeah, there can be a lot of complexity and a lot of moving parts that things have to happen in just the right way, or it doesn't work the way.
Do you have a large development team, Mike, or is it basically just you that writes this code?
Oh, goodness, no. I write very little of the code these days, to be honest. We've got a team of 4 other people that work with me on it. Justin Greenfield and Strovia Blackburn were in on the ground floor with me. Justin probably wrote a lot more code than I did. They both worked with me at OCS. We brought in a guy by the name of Rob Young, who had worked with us at OCS at one time and had left. We brought him in to help out when we decided to port to Android. So he became our Android expert. And then we brought in a fellow named Ross Kimes, who's a graduate from the meteorology program at OU. He joined us a few years ago. He had been working on a competing app in the App Store for radar data, and he joined our team, and he's now, for the last few years, been helped us make RadarScope better. He's the newest guy on the team, but he's got probably a lot more code in there than I do at this point. So.
Are there any plans to add the one thing that I would really like to have in RadarScope? Well, 2 things: a composite, sort of nationwide composite product, and then some sort of satellite data. And I realize that satellite data is not your core competency necessarily, but at the same time, it can be sliced and diced and treated like radar data, at least for display purposes. Is there any thought to adding either of those?
Well, there's certainly a lot of thought about it. We don't have anything coming up between now and storm season for either one of those, but they're both things that are on the roadmap, and we keep talking about, how are we going to do this? When are we going to do it? I think those are both things that will pop up to the top of the priority list at some point.
So let me ask you this. So you guys and Mike Gibson, you pretty much have the lock on the radar market now. Mike, does the Gibson Ridge products, and it seems like, and I've talked with Mike back earlier this year, and I don't know if he's ever going to develop tablet or mobile apps. It just seems like you guys have a lock on the mobile app. But I was going to say, do you ever talk with Mike Gibson at all? Do y'all ever communicate?
Mike and I have met a couple of times and chatted more than once. It's been a while now. So we don't we don't talk to each other on a regular basis, but we have met a couple of times. First time was in Atlanta at the AMS conference.
Or anything, or
Pardon?
I said, did y'all get into a fist fight or anything? I mean,
gosh, no. No, he's
rule number
Mike's
one: no touching of the hair or face.
Yeah, now Mike owns the market over on the Windows platform. He even has an app for a Windows Phone. So if you do have a Windows Phone, that's not a platform we're on, but I believe he has an app over there on their store now, and of course on Windows desktop PCs. And we're pretty much at home on iOS and macOS and Android.
So how many copies, or can you say this? How many copies of Radar Scope are out in the wild?
A few 100,000.
Wow, that's awesome. And again, looking at the future, where do you plan to be in, say, 5 years? Do you have a roadmap? Satellite imagery. Do you have a plan for 3, 4, 5 years down the road?
Well, I think I guess the best way to answer that question is we've got plenty of features on the roadmap like those that we can easily spend the next 5 years working on. We don't have it formally, set out on a calendar. We're going to do this and then this and then this. We do that in shorter increments of 3 to 6 months, and then we're just constantly reevaluating. We had some changes this summer because of the way Apple changed subscriptions that we said, well, let's back up and go with the auto renewing thing because we think that's better for customers and better for us. So there's always things that come along that are going to change any plan you have. It's like forecasting, the farther out you go in time, the less certain you are of exactly what you're going to do and when. But we've certainly got enough things in the roadmap to spend several years working on.
And there's an app called Weather Ops. Explain what that is, because I've seen that in the App Store, and I wasn't quite sure.
Sure. Well, Weather Ops is WDT's business for enterprise customers, business customers. We provide everything from mobile apps and websites for viewing products to a 24/7 forecast team that can provide custom pinpointed forecasts for everything from live events to offshore drilling rigs to ships at sea to whatever business you're in. If weather affects it, we can help you. And the Weather Ops mobile app is one component of that provides forecasts. It provides real-time alerting through push notifications. So if you're much like our weather radio app for consumers, if you're a company that has assets out there and you want to know when one of them's under a weather alert or within lightning within a certain radius or whatever, you can receive those alerts on your phone. The great thing about the Weather Ops app is instead of having 4 or 5 locations you can monitor, you might be monitoring several hundred or several thousand.
Okay, my next question, let's say that I'm a guy that's working a sporting event and I just need to know if there's lightning. What's the best avenue to get that product? Is just use Radar Scope instead of an 8-mile ring with the circle there, or is that the right app? But if you were doing like an event like that, what would your suggestion?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can go. You can buy our Weather Radio app, which is a companion app to Radar Scope, which does alerting. Radar Scope does a great lightning display with our Pro feature, but it doesn't send push notifications or alerts for lightning. Our Weather Radio app does that with a $5 a year subscription package. So if you're a single user and you're monitoring something, and you're kind of thinking small time, then the Weather Radio app will get you started. Our Weather Ops package at whatever level of service you need can provide a much richer set of products and a much stronger service and support for you. If you're a university customer that's managing outdoor events, football games, things like that, sporting events, then I'd probably encourage people to look at Weather Ops on our website and learn more about those packages. And that can be anywhere from the mobile app and alerting with range rings for lightning to having forecasters that actually are watching your locations and helping keep you informed of what's going on.
Okay, one more, and I got to step in the other room for just a second. Tell us about some of the other products and services WDT offers, because most people just think of you and they think of Weather Radio or Radar Scope. There's a lot of other stuff too. Absolutely.
Radar Scope's a small part of what we do. So our weather ops business serves, like I say, everybody from people doing outdoor events to companies in transportation and the energy sectors and agriculture and things like that. We also have our Skywise business, which is where weather ops is sort of full service, the full service package. We have apps and products and websites and alerting that and forecasters in the office that will help you not just provide products, but help you understand how to interpret them and consume them and make decisions based on them. Our Skywise business provides raw data feeds to people. So if you have your own folks in-house that are helping you with weather decision support, and what you need from us is data, then our Skywise business helps you do that. And that's anything from people building mobile apps that they're selling in the App Store for a few dollars, to media companies, TV stations that do apps for alerting and weather, to companies that are big enough to have their own weather support folks in-house and they want to get data from us.
Well, Mike, talk for a second, because Nate touched on this, but Kevin had also asked the same question about, how hard would it be to provide a composite radar product rather than the individual single site radars, which we understand easily and can switch back and forth between, but might provide some confusion for the casual user.
Well, I guess the real question with doing it in radar scope is how do we want to go about doing it? We have, if you look at, for example, our weather radio app or the apps that we do, that we develop for TV stations, we have a tile-based composite radar product that we provide in those that ingests data from all the radars, smooths the data a little bit, combines it all together, filters some of the noise out. And that's a good, it's a great consumer level product. You get some trade-offs, single site versus composite. The things you trade off are resolution to some extent. You trade off timeliness of data to some extent because you have to ingest it all, process it, and turn it into another form. With radar scope, we get a product in for a single radar, we turn it right back out, and the delay is a few seconds at most instead of maybe a few minutes to process it. Right. So I guess the real challenge with radar scope that we ask ourselves is what kind of a composite product do we want to provide? Is it just the lowest altitude reflectivity? Is it is it a composite reflectivity? What do we want to do, and how do we want to combine it, and what resolution do we want to provide it at? Is it tile based, or is it a single large image that covers the whole country? So different things like that come into play in making that decision and thinking about how to do it. And I think we will provide something at some point. We just need to make some decisions about which of those avenues we want to go down.
It's interesting you mentioned that. One of the other apps that I see in very much the same vein as Radar Scope in terms of widespread adoption amongst both hobbyists and professionals is something called and now I'm drawing a blank. Let me pull up my phone and look at it just to remind myself of the name, and it is ForeFlight. I wanted to say Flyocity or something, and that's not it. ForeFlight, and it's an app for pilots to do moving map of all of the different charts and things, and it includes a weather product. And they had that same question: is do we deal with just the classic weather service composite where you take the highest reflectivity in column, or do you do lowest tilt? They provide both because there's an argument to be made for both. And I think the way you guys do toward data on demand, where you're hitting the server just as you need something, you could do both if you wanted to, and then let the end user choose which one, because I think you've got enough professional users that would be able to make an intelligent decision about that. It's a really interesting space that you guys are in, because one of the big Silicon Valley concepts is that concept of dog fooding. Being willing to eat your own dog food. And I think, you guys all eat your own dog food. I mean, it's the best app out there, regardless of your, of your level of use. A basic beginner can buy the app for $10 and get $10 out of it. A professional user can buy the app for $10, may or may not get the subscription, but they're going to get their $10 and some out of it, and nobody's going to feel slighted. And I feel like that, for me, as somebody who manages has a role in picking the apps that we develop or that we use and white label for the TV station that I work for. That's one of the hardest things is we're building something, and I use it some, and I use the one we have now more than I have any of the rest, but it's still not the first thing I go to. And I don't know, if that is really appropriate. Maybe we don't need to eat our own dog food, necessarily. But you guys have really sort of bridged that gap beautifully, and I think the risk is that you let one end wag the tail for the rest of it. And in many cases, it's apps that play toward the lowest common denominator because there are more numbers over there, and they wind up alienating the pro users. And you hear a lot of talk about that right now with Apple and their Mac, the new Pro MacBooks that just came out. Although that's, whether that's really true or not, it's another story. So anyway, long and short of it, more is better.
I think there's definitely some truth to that. And what we want to do is try to make what's a good decision for the product. I mean, we've got apps you can buy now, and some that we build for other folks that you can download for free that do a nice radar mosaic. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure when we put that kind of functionality in Radar Scope that we do it in a way that feels like it belongs in Radar Scope. It doesn't just feel like, not something that doesn't really have the same feel as Radar Scope, but we kind of stapled it onto the side. So we want to make sure it fits in with the rest of the product well, and that people understand it. People are used to Radar Scope data loading really quickly. It's not going to load as quickly when it's a composite, unless it's really, really low resolution. So there are certainly a lot of things to think about in terms of doing that. One of the things we're really happy about that with Radar Scope is that we have somehow managed to achieve, having a product that's accessible to the novice or to the general consumer, the general person that's just affected by weather, but it's also used by professionals. I think one of the strengths of it, one of the great things about it, is that you guys that are in the business of communicating risk to people, you can have viewers and constituents that are using the same app, using the same piece of software. That was one of the strengths, and one of the things that I think was great about our OK First program that we did in Oklahoma is that we were able to put that same product, that same visual appearance, in the hands of emergency managers so that they could see what the forecasters were seeing. And I think Radar Scope kind of does that same thing on a much broader level. So it allows, everybody to be looking at something in kind of the same representation. And I think that's a powerful thing. You mentioned ForeFlight. They're a great company, and we're I'll just mention that we're very proud to be a weather data provider to them. So
excellent.
They've got a great product.
Are there any plans to and I know there's been some controversy and a lot of smoke, not a whole lot of fire as far as I can tell, but controversy with MPing. Are there any plans to allow Radar Scope to pull MPing reports, much like you do allow people to pull reports from Spotter Network?
That's a great question. And we are, in addition to the Mac app we've got coming out before the end of the year, we're also working on series of updates for all three platforms, and MPing is going to be part of that. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yes.
Great.
It's Christmas.
So talk for a second, Mike. I'd love to hear you talk about, how do you go about building a composite out of all these different radar sites? Because you can look at activity coming across the Mississippi border tonight from Birmingham. It looks quite a bit different than it does from Columbus, Mississippi, up to a certain point. So how do you smooth that out with an algorithm?
Well, I'm probably not the best person at WDD to talk about how we do it, but I can talk about some of the challenges that are involved. So you've got, each individual radar that's scanning the atmosphere. They're not synced together, synchronized in terms of time. So they could be doing scans that are a few minutes apart. It's a little less of a problem now than it was a few years ago. Now that radars, when there's precip, they tend to scan a little bit faster and more often at the lower levels. But still, they're not synced, so the scans don't always update at the same time. You have beam height issues. So the radar the beam comes up at an angle from the radar up into the air, and the farther away you get from the radar, the higher it's looking in the atmosphere. So you have to think about that too. If you're looking at the same point on the ground from two different radars, one of them may be looking much higher in the atmosphere than the other one is. So you're seeing different things. You're seeing, higher level storm features instead of lower level ones. You might be seeing what looks like precip at a higher level, but it's not really reaching the ground. So there's a lot of different things, both from a point of view of time, how often these things update, and if this scan is from 305 and this other one's from 309, or there's altitude issues of where each radar is looking in the air. There are noise and clutter issues that come along with that. One radar lower to the ground may have more ground clutter than another one does. There are scanning strategy and issues in terms of whether a radar's in clear mode or precip mode, and how you combine those. So there are certainly a lot of things that have to be taken into account when those data get ingested. For our composite products, we ingest all of that stuff in real time from level 2 data. We run clutter filtering on it to try to clean out some of the non-precip echoes, and then we rasterize all of that. We do contours out of that, and then we have our most commonly used mosaic is actually a contoured product of either composite or low altitude reflectivity.
Now, Kevin asked a question about that because you touched on for a second the problem with ground clutter. So he asked, are you doing anything with ground clutter in Radar Scope, or is that something that you would ever touch with the app itself?
The level 3 products that we have in Radar Scopes, like the base reflectivity product and those, we don't do any processing to. We just pass those on as is. The level 2 data that's in Radar Scope, we do some basic clutter filtering algorithms on that as it comes in.
So, Mike, talk for a second about the different languages, that the various programs are written in. Are they now on a common language? Have you re-engineered that? How does that work?
Well, from the day we started all this, the preferred language for iOS and Mac development was a language called Objective-C, which had started out at Next, a company called Next, which Apple acquired. That was Steve Jobs' company when he came back to Apple. So that was the language that Apple built everything on top of. And so that was kind of the language there. The code that we already had that we developed for PCs and Macs back in the 90s was C++ code. So fortunately, iOS could handle C++. So we mixed some C++ with some Objective-C and made that work. When the time came to port to the Mac, we could use those same languages, but with Android, the native language there is one called Java. So what we did with Android, we were able to use a smaller bit of the C++ code for kind of very low level stuff, decoding radar data and some of the basic graphics routines. And then the rest of the app, all the UI and the buttons and the clicking and the tapping and things has to be done in Java. So that was pretty much a complete rewrite. So there's some code shared between all three. There's now, since all of that, within the last year, I guess in the last 2 years, Apple's come out with a new language called Swift that they're really excited about, and we looked at it and we like it too. So iOS version 3 was rewritten in Swift, not quite from the ground up, but pretty darn close. And we brought that code over to the Mac. So now instead of Objective-C and C++, we have Swift and C++ on Mac and iOS. We're sharing a lot more code between Mac and iOS. So that's good. Android's still a separate citizen there, though. There's still some C++ and a lot of Java, and that I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. There are tools and packages and things you can do to share more common code between the platforms, but the problem with those kind of things you run into is they don't always keep up with the features that each platform has. So because you're kind of going through this other layer to get to the features that the platform offers. And so we feel like we're better off to just write native code for each one and the language they want us to use. And it takes a little longer, but we think we get better code in the long run.
I was going to toss it to James and let him wrap, but any other questions the rest of the panelists would like to ask Mike tonight?
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah,
help yourself.
Yeah,
that's why we have you here.
I'm just curious, with technology continuing to change, operating systems continuing to update, what are some of the challenges that you face just trying to keep up with the general technology? overall with your product?
Keeping up is a challenge, especially in the mobile market with PCs. You know, a Mac or Windows platform, those things sort of stabilized in the 90s, and we didn't. Well, we saw some changes with Mac OS, you know, around the turn of the century when we went to OS 10. But the truth is, we got to the point where those platforms move more slowly. You know, they come out with a major release of Windows every 3 or 4 years. They come out with a new version of Mac OS every couple of years. And with the mobile devices, with iOS and Android, they're updating those operating systems, you know, a major release every year and minor releases in between. They're coming out with all new hardware products every year. So, and not only are they coming out with the new things, but they are rapidly, as Apple advances their technology, they rapidly deprecate the old stuff much more quickly than they used to. So whereas in a PC environment, you might have a piece of software that was 10 years old and still works, you're unlikely to have anything that's 5 or 6 years old that still works really well and keeps up with everything. On mobile, it's harder to do. So I guess, you know, the challenge there is to just figure out how do we fit in the things we want to do to add features to the software. How do you balance that with also keeping up with the platforms? Apple will tell us where they're headed usually in the summer, say around June, at their annual developer conference, and then they're going to ship that OS in September. So we've got just, you know, a few weeks to say, oh, what are they doing? Which one of those things are going to be most important to our customers? Are there anything we have to address because something's going to break? And then, you know, that's the first step one. Step two is, what are the cool new things they're going to do? Maybe it's a Retina display, or maybe it's, you know, more memory. So now we can do something that we couldn't do before. There's all kinds of things that we look at and try to figure out how do we work those into the roadmap that we have. Or maybe they come out with a whole new programming language and say, this is the future, you should rewrite your stuff in this. And so we go off and do that. So it moves fast. It keeps it kind of fun. The thing I like about iOS is that not only does the technology change quickly, but people adopt it quickly. So we don't have to have as long a tail of backward compatibility. Within 6 months, almost everyone that has an iOS device is running the latest version of iOS after it comes out. So we tend to support the current release of iOS and the one right before it, and we don't have to go any farther than that. And that helps us just basically keep up with the new stuff without also having to worry that the old stuff works. You can always still run an older version of the app and just keep using it, but the next version of the app, we can focus on the newer things. Android's a little different because it stretches out a little longer. We might have a more like a 2 or 3 year tail there where we need to provide backward compatibility because you don't see the adoption quite as quick there.
Well, I'm glad.
Mike, for younger people that want to get into coding,
any suggestions for that? Well, you know, it's a lot different when I was a kid and getting started. When I was interested in Apple's Macintosh platform in the early 90s when almost nobody else was. There wasn't an internet yet, so I had to go buy books and I had to read things and I had to figure out how do I learn this in a vacuum when nobody else is interested in these things, or very few people are. These days, you've got all these great resources in the internet. If you look at iTunes U, that's a service Apple has where they've got college lectures online. Stanford University has a pretty well-known and very good program on introductions to iOS development and how to get involved in that. Apple and Google and Microsoft, for all of those platforms, have great resources online now on their websites, developer.apple.com or developer.android.com, to kind of help you get started and figure out where to go. And there's websites like Stack Overflow where you've got, you know, veteran software developers answering questions for the new guys that are trying to figure out problems they're having. So, you know, it's all out there on the internet somewhere, and it's a lot easier to get started than it used to be.
Awesome. Well, tell you what, while I've got a second, let me roll the recorded segments. So see, Aubrey, are you here or you are not here? I think she's not here. If she's here, we'll do an email segment coming out of this. We're going to do Professor Peters, Tony Rice, and the Astronomy Report. We'll come back with the Weather Roundup, Picks of the Week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along. So there we go.
101 with Professor Peters.
I have been in the field of
over 50 years, and until just days ago, I had never heard of this rare event. Thunderstorms can kill in a number of ways: high wind, large hail, lightning, and rain that produces flash flooding. But asthma? According to reports coming out of Australia, 6 people were killed and thousands were hospitalized in the Melbourne area and other parts of Victoria with breathing problems brought on by a rare combination of weather and pollen. According to what I've read, thunderstorm asthma occurs when a thunderstorm occurs during a period of unusually high pollen and high humidity. This combination of factors causes the grains of pollen to break apart and disperse, entering people's lungs, making it extremely difficult to breathe. A survey conducted by the University of Melbourne reported that 74% of those who responded to the survey experienced an asthma attack during the storms last week. This phenomenon is not limited to the country down under and has been reported all over the world. One recent event in Italy in 2010 was linked to pollen from olive trees. Now, there appears to be different conditions across the globe that can bring on thunderstorm asthma, but one common link in occurrences appears to be the high concentration of potentially allergenic material. A researcher at the University of Canberra also noted that when the thunderstorm sweeps up the allergens, the pollen, when they become wet, releasing very small particles such as fungal spores and starch granules, exacerbating asthma problems for many. The only known action recommended by medical authorities right now is to monitor weather forecasts and pollen counts and to seek emergency services if your asthma gets worse or your breathing becomes difficult. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Venus continues to dazzle after sunset. It will be visible through at least February in our evening sky. Look to the southwest, about 15 degrees above the horizon. Closer to the horizon, look for Mercury and Saturn. By Wednesday, the moon will join them to form a triangle low on the southwestern horizon. Elsewhere, today, November 28th, begins the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere of Mars. Now, this happens as the planet reaches 270 degrees solar longitude in its orbit around the sun. Do you know where your GOES-R is? It's currently in an orbit raising phase and is oriented towards the sun to allow the solar arrays to fully harness the sun's energy during this phase. The GOES team will continue with a series of burns of the onboard liquid apogee engine. This will further circularize the orbit and help it reach geosynchronous orbit by Saturday, December 4th, 14 days after launch. As of today, GOES-R has reached an altitude of about 31,000 kilometers. It's well on its way to join the other GOES satellites at just over 42,000 kilometers. Since launch, inclination, or that angle between the orbit of the satellite and the equator, has been reduced to just 6 degrees. Over the next week, that will be reduced further to about a quarter degree, matching the other GOES satellites. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
Oh, Aubrey, are you there? I think you're there.
Can you hear me?
Well, in that case, so have you got time for an email segment?
I do.
Well, good. In that case, I'm going to play the music here because I know, I have a funny feeling we've got some email coming in here.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Yes, we do have some letters. Our friend Tarmo, and if you follow Tarmo on Twitter, he's actually been tweeting out some really interesting pictures and video from the other side of the world. So Tarmo says, "Hello, WeatherBrains. Just wanted to share some updates from the Middle East, where they have been a little bit active lately. Wednesday last week, there were some twin tornadoes in Qatar."
And we lost her.
Uh-oh. And she's gone.
No?
Right. Now you're back now. You're back.
She's in. She's out.
All right.
She's in.
So we have. We're in. Okay.
She's playing the hokey pokey with us.
I'll try and hold steady. Oh my gosh! All right, we're gonna
put your Aubrey in. You take your
twin
Aubrey.
Tornadoes in Qatar. the
Yes.
Saudis, it's rained in Saudi Arabia. Schools were closed in some places. Storms have been continuing in Saudi Arabia. So thank you for the report from Estonia. We also have a listener survey response from Bradley Lamptey. Ooh, my neck of the woods. Was searching for the April 27th documentary and found us. Would love to see Dr. Greg Forbes on the show. Has Forbes ever been on the show?
He has.
He has.
We need to have him
Can you
again.
guys hear me? He has. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this segment, since apparently I'm in and out, and that's all I have. So if you'd like to send us an email, send it to email@weatherbrains.com. We'd love to hear your guest suggestions, your show about the show, what you'd like to see.
Okay, cool. And Bill, I'm going to let you finish this thing out because I've got to go back to Studio A. So I'll let you do weather rate.
All right. Well, good. Well, I have something to add to the email there before we go too much further. One of the listeners, and I can't locate the email right easily here tonight, but asked about the warning simulator. We talked about it several months ago, and Lance Rothfuse there, and of course, Rick might have some more information to share on this. But Lance wrote back last night and said that they're working on the programming for the simulator, and that worked out a HR glitch they had with OU. They've rehired the programmers, and their goal is to release the hot seat weather simulator at the AMS meeting in late January. So that's exciting news there. And let's see, let me see if I can tell who. Rob, one of our main listeners, asked that question. So I thought that was interesting news right there. So anyways, time for the weather roundup. We don't have the cool sound and all that sort of stuff, but obviously we've been following the fire situation in Gatlinburg tonight, and it's like the rain is just about to get in there. So hopefully things will get better. So what else going on nationally? Nate Johnson, anything going on in your neck of the woods?
Oh, not much. Just looking at a couple of warm days. We have a marginal risk for severe weather here, and actually a higher risk for severe weather across the portions of the southern plains, the deep south, over the next couple of days, in addition to the rain that's been moving across the deep south, mid-south this evening. This is desperately, desperately needed rain in the deep south and the southeast, and hopefully we can maximize the amount of rain we get out of this, help to tamp down, if not put out, the fires that are burning in North Carolina and Tennessee and other places. And just more rain, just keep it coming. The problem is drought begets drought, and it's hard to overcome that. So hopefully we can overcome it.
Yeah, we need 15 inches here in central Alabama to erase the current drought situation, which is really, I don't know if it technically qualifies as a flash drought, but, up there about June, we were ahead of rainfall for the year and for the past 12 months, and then it went off the side of the cliff. We
had a hurricane here October, first full weekend of October. We had a hurricane here, and now we're abnormally dry. I mean, that's how quickly your fates can turn.
Now, y'all are used to that in Oklahoma, Rick. I can remember being there for Tropical Storm Bill, and it rained about 40 inches, I think, where I was near Ardmore, and closed the interstate and caused all sorts of things. And I looked up about 90 days later, and y'all were in a drought.
Yeah, it's a seesaw roller coaster for sure, and I can vouch for the fact that droughts often do end in floods, and here sometimes floods end in drought. So we're kind of in between now. I think the parts of our state are still in a drought. The southeast part was the worst off, and they actually got the most rain last night. So we're not nearly as in bad shape as you guys are over there, but we certainly need the rain as we're getting into that dormant season with all the vegetation and wildfire season's coming up for us here pretty soon.
It seems to me that we're going to be heading into a significantly cold pattern across much of the country. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Hey, Bill, I've been monitoring some of the snowfall totals up in North Dakota here this evening. We're getting already in western North Dakota some 9, 10, 11-inch totals. A lot of cold air obviously coming in there, and unfortunately a lot of that snow is going to be accompanied by wind, so we could see some near blizzard conditions up there here over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I saw something, some of the GFS, or I'm sorry, the European ensembles predicting that we would be 12 to 14 degrees below normal here in about 2 weeks. So after going back up to 78 tomorrow, that will be interesting.
Yikes.
When I was doing my forecast package on Sunday, I kind of flipped out when I saw that we were going to be touching 80 almost tomorrow here. And of course, that's going to add to the potential for severe weather tomorrow night here in Alabama and other places. Any other notes on national weather?
Hurricane season's about to end in the Atlantic Basin.
Well, Hurricane Otto really turned up the heat there at the last minute before going into Costa Rica and Nicaragua, huh?
Yeah, what's this with keeping the name on both sides?
That was new to me too, right? Is that a new development, Nate?
That is a new thing they instituted a couple years ago after we had systems cross and change the name. So if it maintains, and I don't know exactly the technical minimum that it has to maintain, but if it maintains that across, then it will keep the Atlantic name as it goes into the Pacific. And if we were to have one cross in the other direction, unlikely, but if we were to have one cross in the other direction, it would do the same thing.
So the Eastern North Pacific is going to end up with potentially with 2 O storms.
Yep.
Not potentially.
That's right.
They were already to T.
They've already. That's right. They've already had it. Yes. Wow. Talk about confusing.
Yeah. No kidding.
Sometimes
Brian,
as meteorologists, we have a way of really confusing the heck out of everybody, including ourselves.
There's no question about that, but no confusion on this show ever. It's time.
Oh yeah, right.
That time of the show where we go around the big polished mahogany digital table here and take some picks of the week. And while we've got Aubrey's shining face over there, we'll start with her.
All right, mine. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear.
Mine is a tweet that was just posted. It is a screen grab of a weather station in Gatlinburg reading 118 degrees.
Right before the fire got there.
Right before it went offline. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've been monitoring some things, and this is a good point to bring it in here. I don't have a pick, Bill, but and so good night not to have a pick. James is not here with the foghorn, but been watching some tweets from the Gatlinburg area, and the problem right now is the evacuation is underway, but the fire is crossing the road, and one person tweeted out that the car behind them caught fire.
Oh my gosh.
So very, very bad situation going on up there. I hope that rain gets there soon.
I looked up the Google Maps and it's gridlock, completely gridlock in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And I'd like to also just add to what's been said about the situation in the southeastern U.S. The Alabama Forestry Commission has been monitoring wildfires in the state of Alabama since, they monitor all the time, but they've been putting out a map since the 1st of October. October the 1st, 2016, there have been 2,198 wildfires that have burned over 27,000 acres just in the state of Alabama.
Now, Brian, I've never seen that in my lifetime.
No, I've never seen anything go. I mean, when you first look at this map, you cannot see any of the state of Alabama because at the scale they presented to you, the icons cover the entire state. You have to zoom in to figure out where all these fires are, but they're pretty equally spaced all over the state. So
I can remember as a child, my grandparents lived in a wilderness area of Alabama, and they constantly were fearful of fire. Mm-hmm. And I think that came from the 1954 drought, where there were substantial wildfires, and they actually talked about wells going dry, which is another thing I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Until this drought.
Yeah. And also, Kevin's gone, rat. But I want to. My shirt arrived. Yes. Woohoo! Woohoo! Teesprings.com. I think it's still available. That you can still get it. So.
Well, now I put in a reserve order. Is that one of those reserve orders, Brian, or is that?
Oh well, I don't know. I ordered mine when we first did it.
I know he said last week that we needed 2 more orders to trigger it, so I went in and put in 1 order. So if
I
we're
haven't
still sitting at 1,
status.
somebody needs to go make another order.
Absolutely. And
So, Brian, you have no pick of the week, huh?
I have no pick, but if I had a pick, I would pick Radar Scope. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on tonight, and I just want to tell you how much I enjoy using the software. Thank you for allowing me to be a beta tester. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Brian. It's nice to hear.
But we'll go to you next, Mike. I don't think anybody warns you about having to have a pick of the week, but I feel
I have some restrictions,
a plethora
Mike.
of them over there.
Yeah, I have some restrictions, Mike. You can't use Weather Decisions Technologies because I already have that one in the show notes. Pardon me, Warning Decision Technologies. I said weather. I meant Warning Decision Technologies. That's already in our show notes.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything that I guess would count as a official pick of the week. But the thing I would close with is that I did get to mention the folks that work with me directly on the Radar Scope app. WDT is a company. It's over 80 people that are totally focused on weather, that love weather and software and all the things that have made Radar Scope a success since we came here almost 6 years ago. Are part of a much bigger team than me and those folks. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody here that does everything from support to data processing to all the other products, because it's really a fabulous company to be a part of, and it's a fabulous community that we get a chance to serve. And so thanks to all of you guys and everybody that's listening for somebody to come in with no other background at all and get to spend the last coming on 25 years now making products for this community has just been a real pleasure and a real joy. So just a shout out to everybody that's used the product. And
y'all are hiring right now, if I'm not mistaken.
We are, I believe. I don't have the exact positions in mind, but we're always looking for folks that love the weather and
I think the one that I saw come across Twitter just a minute ago is for weather, essentially tech support.
We definitely have a need there, a pretty strong need there right now. So if got anybody listening that's interested in helping us out with that, one of the things that's great about WDT is how fantastic our tech support is for the product. So when Radar Scope came in, I went from doing, there were 2 or 3 of us that were doing tech support just whenever we had time to answer email, in addition to doing all the other things, and being able to hand that off to an award-winning support team that's there 24/7 to answer emails. Fantastic. So.
Well, that's very important. And Mike, we thank you and your company for what you did for us for the NWA for the Weather Ready Fest in September, and put a good word in for us for next year in Anaheim. It looks like we're heading for a September 16th date.
Great. Well, we're glad to be able to be a part of that. Thank you.
Well, we thank you for that. And that's a good transition to Nick Walker, who was a huge part of that Weather Ready Fest. Nick, that was quite a day.
I am so looking forward to that, Bill. It'll be a great time there in Anaheim, and thank you for all that you do to make those weather fests happen. It's just amazing to see the work that goes into that, and hats off to you for doing that. Hey, I'm watching my app as the rain comes into Atlanta here, and boy, I'm so happy to see that. It's good to see some rain coming into Gatlinburg as well. I'm reading something here. I understand that Pigeon Forge now is being evacuated. A lot of people trying to get out of that area. Reports that the traffic is terrible. It looks like the fire is just coming over the mountains there. Obviously, a tough situation for those folks there. Hopefully, that rain can get in there soon and help out with that situation.
The problem is with the roads is that there's very few roads in and out of there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Gatlinburg has a normal population of what, 4,000? So, I mean, yes, it swells during, especially during the summer season, but I mean, it's a town of 4,000 people. And in the mountains at that. It's not like it's a major urban area with large interstates in and out.
Well, and your typical weekend, honestly, on a Saturday morning, I think it's just a 4-lane road, and you're just gridlocked all the way in.
It just looks horrible. Just looking at the radar returns, I mean, you can literally see where the fires continue to burn, and maybe some radar echoes are just going over them. So hopefully that'll help tamp the situation down.
Hey, let me give a shout out tonight as a pick of the week here to the Mountain Press. I've been looking at their Twitter feed tonight. This is a newspaper in Eastern Tennessee. Just an amazing photograph that they put up there of the fires coming over the mountains there into Gatlinburg. Obviously, a lot of folks working hard there tonight. I also want to make sure, I know Brian is very specific about his picks of the week, and
we can put it in you. We can put it in for you there. So it's there twice.
Yeah. Well, good. I would like to not only put in that URL to help my friend out.
Yes.
Guy Walton, a 31-year veteran of the Weather Channel who really needs some help with his healthcare costs. That's youcaring.com/help Guy. There's also a Facebook page that we've set up. It's facebook.com/help Guy Walton. And if you go and like that page, there'll be updates of his condition, of the progress of the fundraiser to help him out. And again, any help you can give him monetarily or just any words of encouragement would go a long way to help Guy out. And I appreciate so much the opportunity to come on WeatherBrains and talk about that fundraiser for my friend Guy. Thanks so much.
And it's always good to see you, Nick. Please put in a good word with the higher ups there at the Weather Channel and tell them we need them to be an even bigger part of WeatherFest next year.
Oh, listen, I am doing my best to try to get them a big part of that.
Yeah, they really should be there. They were a huge help with the live broadcast that morning, and we really appreciated that and their other presence that they had. But we would like to have an even bigger presence.
Yes, we would certainly.
So let's go to Nate. Nate, what's your pick of the week, sir?
My pick of the week isn't so much a pick. It's hey, if you're tweeting pictures from Gatlinburg, make sure it's a picture from Gatlinburg. We're getting lots of old pictures getting retweeted and passed off as the fires in Gatlinburg. Trust me, the pictures from Gatlinburg are bad enough. You don't have to find anything else.
What is wrong with people? I do not understand. So, that's a great piece of advice there. Thank you very much, Nate. And Rick Smith and Norman.
Well, we're talking a lot about fires and rain. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to snow. My pick of the week is a mental floss article. Our friend Dennis Mercereau has written 6 tips for being smart about snow forecasts. And we're starting to get our first dose of snow forecast here for Oklahoma with potential system this weekend and maybe next weekend as well. So never too early to share some reminders about the safe and wise consumption of weather information on the internet. Not that any of it would ever be bad or exaggerated, but just in case.
So Brian, I'll toss it back to you because I know you and Rick were banting about a big announcement that kind of hit the social media.
Rick, do you want to do it? I didn't want to steal your thunder there, Rick.
No, you go ahead.
Well, yeah, as everybody knows, we've had a great friend at the SPC in terms of the WCM who was Greg Carbon, but Greg has moved on to a job at WPC, and we have an announcement that his predecessor has been his successor, has been selected, and that is Patrick Marsh. So it sounds like
Patrick Marsh.
Yes, Dr. Patrick Marsh. So that strikes me as a great choice. I only know sort of Patrick. I don't know that I've actually shaken hands with him, but he seems like a really great guy to fill those shoes, and I'm sure he's got some big shoes to fill.
Well, I happen to know that James got to write a letter of recommendation for him, and so I know.
All right,
there was a lot of personal excitement when he won that job. So that's great news. Thank you for sharing that, Rick and Brian. That's awesome. Well, I'll use as my picks of the week so I can avoid the virtual foghorn tonight, which will be our guest coming up. Great guest tonight, Mike. Nice to have you here, and thank you for joining us too, Nick. This has been great to have you here. Next week we'll be talking about the National Water Model, and we'll have as guest panelist Gary Lezak. We'll be talking on the 12th to Gary Sikowski. I never can say Gary's name right, but I'm excited.
Zakowski.
Zatkowski. Well, we're excited to have him on. And what'd you say, Nate, when it was announced? You had you wrote something in an email to the panel. What'd you say?
I don't remember other than this is a good choice and it will be must watch live tweeted. Gary was a very how do I put this?
Carefully,
He's a
apparently.
really smart guy, and was started to become, especially in the last few years, Sandy and whatnot, was much freer with his opinions and has become even freer now that he is retired from the National Weather Service after a long and distinguished career. And this I find to be a very good thing for the weather enterprise. I think we need to hear the kinds of things that Gary has to say.
Well, we were holding a spot for Greg Carbon, who's just been mentioned, his new job at the WPC, but he's still doing his, events of the year, weather roundups, and he'll be coming on Wednesday, December 21st. That's the night we'll record the show. That show will get released into the wild on Monday, the 26th. But that leaves an opening out there for December 19th, and I've got just an entire file cabinet full of people that have been suggested as guests by all of our listeners. But if you got a last minute guest suggestion, this will be a good time to get it in, and we'll round out the show for the year, and we'll be turning the page to 2017. I cannot believe that. Can you believe that?
Either.
And Nate, I remembered what you said when I said
you didn't. You went and looked it up.
Yeah, you know what you said? You said the show was going to be lit.
It will be lit. which seems a very poor choice of words given what's happening in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. But it will be a must watch, and that's one of those. We you say Gary's going to be live, or are we going to tape that one ahead of time?
Gary will be live. He'll be live on Monday, December 12th.
All right, that's one of those shows that you want to actually be watching the live stream and on Twitter, because that'll be good stuff.
Yes, it will. Well, all right, guys. I guess unless there's any further business to bring to the group tonight, we'll get ready to adjourn. But WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast that's all about weather. We were the first weather podcast. We've made absolutely $0 on this show the entire time we've been doing it for 12 years, but we've loved every minute of it. And we appreciate everyone who listens, and we really appreciate all the fantastic guests that we've had over the years. But you can listen to us usually on Monday night, except when James is on vacation, which will be coming up the week of the 26th. So you'll actually hear us if you listen to the recorded podcast after the 26th, but we'll be recording it on the 21st. But otherwise, you generally can find us here. You can send us an email at weatherbrains.com. And we love getting those emails in each week, even when we don't have Aubrey to read them. But for all the panel and our guests tonight and all the folks that are listening out there, I'll wish you good night and good luck, and talk to you next week. So have a great week, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Mike.
Good to see you.
Nick. Always good to see you. Get some sleep, Nick.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it so much.
We'll watch you on TV tomorrow.
All righty. So long.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Y'all take care.
Peace.
Night, Mike.
Bye.
Hello. Wow. Kind of a wild night tonight. Sorry for the about my inability to be on the show that much, but it makes the show better when I'm not here. But no, I've been very busy with these fires and the rain situation, and got a severe weather situation in my market tomorrow night. So after months and months of nothing, it all happens at once. So and we're not going to do Song of the Night tonight. We're going to hold that and probably tomorrow night as well. We'll be back, I think, on Wednesday. But whenever we have active weather, we tend to do more serious things, which is our main job here. So, but thank you all for watching. Great to have the WDT guys. Mike is a good friend, and Radar Scope and all of his products are just fantastic. And good to have those guys on the show. Good to see Nick Walker from the Weather Channel on with us as well. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next Monday night for Weather Brains. Bye-bye.